Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to today's live event, Strategies for Proving ROI in Revenue Enablement. My name's Marcus Woodard, and I'm your producer for today, coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. Just want to let you know that this presentation is being recorded and an on-demand version will be emailed out later today. Right now, I'll have you go into the chat and switch all of your sessions here from hosts and panelists to everyone. And let us know where you're tuning in from today. Excuse me. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So please add your questions, comments to the chat or the Q&A panel, and we'll get those answered to you the best we can as this session is happening. So with that, let's hand it over to our speakers for a quick intro. Lauren, what do you say we start with you?
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Marcus, I one time didn't realize that I was stuck on hosts and panelists in the chat for the whole thing. Like about halfway through, I got a massive complex. I'm like, nobody's replying to me. I feel like I must be right. It wasn't my best moment. What a way to kick it off. My name is Lauren Bailey. My friends call me LB. I am enablement leader at heart. I'm a former sales leader turned training and enablement leader turned entrepreneur. So 15 years ago, I left as the global head of training and development strategy at SAP, and I started Factor 8. And Factor 8 is a digital sales skills firm. So we specialize in helping those, millennials and Zs actually pick up the phone and connect with people and have great conversations. So love doing that. It's been about 15 years. And my second passion is helping women in all revenue fields earn promotions faster. And that's what we do with Girls Club. So I am really excited to share secrets today because I've kind of felt like, don't laugh at me, but I feel like my superpower is translating between sales and enablement, having worn both hats, right? I can take a sales issue and translate it into an enablement solution, or I can take what enablement folks are talking about it and translate it into sales speak so we get higher buy-in, et cetera. And in fact, you'll see some of those tips from me in the amazing resources room that the Allego people put together. So I'm ready to get started. Dennis, your turn.
Thank you. I'm going to call you LB. Thanks, LB. My name is Dennis Olcay. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for joining us. My background actually also started in sales. I've done door-to-door copier sales back in the recession, which was a very humbling and quite eye-opening experience into the world of sales. From there, I actually went into instructional training design, and I worked for a sales consulting company delivering training across the globe. So that was my second introduction into sort of the world of sales. And most recently now, I am a VP of marketing at Allego, and we are a modern sales enablement software company that helps organizations ready their teams, curate content, and engage buyers in the modern world. And I'm so excited to be joined by you, LB. I think we're going to have so much fun here. I can see already our audience is active in the chat. We were just chatting before the webinar begun, but I'm a super fan of engaging the audience. So don't be surprised if I cold call on you, ask you questions. And if I, react to what you're saying in the chat, I'll be active. Please do so as well. We want to make this session valuable for you, right? At the end of the day, you chose to spend some time with us. And we're going to be offering you some really valuable perspectives on a topic that's near and dear to both of our hearts, which is really trying to transform the enablement function from being viewed as a cost center into a key piece of the revenue machine, right? And I think between the two of us, LB, we've got the whole revenue team perspective covered, right? Marketing, enablement, and sales. So it should be an interesting discussion. And looking forward to hearing from everybody online right now. I'm seeing folks from the UK, from Miami, from Virginia, from Texas, Chicago, all over. So thanks for joining us today. So a quick recap of our agenda. You probably saw some of this in the promotional materials, but our main topic at hand is, again, trying to really help shape internal perspectives across our organizations, our respective organizations, on really making enablement being seen as a key piece of the revenue puzzle, right? Not merely a cost center, not a nice to have, and not an expense, right? It's an investment in our people and in our success. We're going to talk a little bit about how we can really tackle enablement as a team sport. What are the different components of enablement? What are the different teams that are involved in making it a success? Like we discussed, it's really a team effort between sales, marketing, and the enablement department. What can we measure that matters? What are the different measurement strategies? What are the categories of different metrics we should be tracking? We're also going to be giving you some cheat sheets and tools and resources at the end of this webinar. So hang tight. We'll be sending you actually an ROI calculator template as well that you can at least get started if you're still in sort of those early phases of trying to really prove ROI and measure. We've got some resources to help you get started. And hopefully, again, at the end of the day, we want to help you be successful in your organization, be seen as a key piece of the revenue puzzle. And if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat along the way. We don't necessarily have to wait till the end, but we'll definitely carve out some time at the end to answer questions as well. Okay. So with that, let's kick off a quick poll, right? So we want to better understand you so we can tailor the content to your needs and your role. So you should see a poll question pop up on your screen. What best describes your role? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you an individual contributor building learning programs? Are you a sales leader, really focused on coaching? Are you a marketing leader? Are you working on trying to build content and get adoption from your reps? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and hopefully we'll be able to cater the content depending on sort of what clusters of folks we have on the call today. So I'll give you a quick moment.
So if I'm a sales enablement or training leader, shall I pick number 3?
Yes.
Cool. Stay in that bucket. All right, good. And Maria, loving you. You're putting it in chat. That's fantastic. Love it. Ooh, recruiting. That's a smart one too.
So I'm seeing the poll close. Thank you everyone for participating. Seems like we've got 34% in the sales enablement function. We've got about 14% in marketing, 10% in sales, some individual contributors, a decent amount in other actually. Yeah, and I saw that we've got some folks in HR and then some other functions. Yeah.
Recruiting, yeah, all good stuff. This is good, diverse audience. But you know what it tells me is that you guys we're right on. We talked about what's going to hit home for enablement, right? We've drawn enablement folks here, and it's a tough time to be in enablement, right?
Yeah.
So really coming together with our revenue partners is critical. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And it also tells you that really, actually one of the pieces of the agenda, I mentioned team sport. Enablement is a team sport, right? And it really is the coming together of these different departments to really, align on a vision and a process for driving revenue in the organization, right? And it's so critical for folks that are in the enablement leadership position to play that quarterback role or play that leadership role to help facilitate those conversations and that alignment across the divisions and come to the conclusion of how are we going to measure our value in the organization together. And that's really what we're here to talk about. And I'm so happy that I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Safan Ren. When you say enablement, can you give a definition? And that is my next slide. It was almost like it was a plant, right? It was almost like you teed me up there, Safan. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. But so first, what is sales and revenue enablement, right? There's so much confusion around this term because it's a rapidly evolving space. Typically, there are 5 key business processes that support sales or revenue enablement. You might hear the term revenue enablement emerging in the market now, and this is essentially a more inclusive term to sort of make the point that we were just making, right? That this is a team sport. It's the revenue team together, whether you're in customer success, you're in sales, you're in marketing, you're in enablement. This is everyone's job, right? It's not sort of the old school way of, hey, I'm going to do a training, I'm going to show up, and then I'm going to leave, and I hope the knowledge gets retained. That is not what enablement is, right? It's a component of it. So you'll see here, onboarding and training is a key piece of the puzzle. Launching and rolling out new service offerings or products is a piece of the puzzle. Why? Because then you have to make sure that your field teams and your reps are knowledgeable about that subject and can bring it to the market. Content and messaging is a key piece of the puzzle. Marketing, coming to the table and trying to arm the teams with that perspective and that polished material, right? Making it easy to find and distribute. That's definitely a piece of enablement. Digital selling, right? We're in a hybrid world now where, selling happens as much as it does face-to-face, happens virtually, just like this, right? And asynchronously through email or through chat. So how can we enable our reps to really sell in this new environment? Coaching and collaboration, right? Practice makes perfect. And as managers and as leaders, we have to lead by example, and we need to give our teams the tools and the frameworks and the guidance from the experience that we have to make them successful. So really, this whole piece comes together to form what we say enablement, with the ultimate goal of really readying your teams, right? Make them ready, make them confident, curate your content, right? Make sure they can find the materials they need, as they're going through the sales process, whether it's a proposal template or sales deck or a brochure or whatever it might be. And also engage your buyers. At the end of the day, that's where the rubber hits the road, right? When your reps are in front of a client or a customer, they need to be able to speak confidently, build trust, and bring revenue to your organization, right? So this is really what we say when we talk about enablement. And I'm curious, LB, if you have any comments on that.
It's just that we overlap with so many different departments to get these things done, right? So I remember most of my early days at SAP, I felt like we weren't a team sport. It was, right? Like I had to go battle marketing to get the messaging, and then I had to fix it all because it wasn't digitally enabled. And I had to battle IT to help get our technology, right? And so it always felt like we were out there on our own sometimes in enablement. And I think that the right companies are bringing our enablement into the fold and making sure it's a team sport across all these cross-functional areas. So I hope that everybody in the chat's lucky to have that situation instead of fighting departments when you're trying to get these things done as it crosses all the different divisions.
Absolutely, right. With great power comes great responsibility too, right? So this is no easy task. And for some organizations I've worked with, the enablement department is a team of one, right? And sort of how do you make it happen with limited resources, limited time? How do you prioritize? It can be challenging, right? But also tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. We have to, right? We don't always have great power, if I'm really honest with you, right? We've got to go in there and be powerful. And that's what so many of our tips here are about, is how do you show that you are powerful and that you deserve a seat at the table and that you speak these different languages so that you can GSD, get stuff done.
Get stuff done. I love it.
Might be the first time I've stuff in my life.
And again, one piece of obviously the puzzle and sort of arming our teams is technology. There's so much research out there that says, sellers are just burdened by process, burdened by technology, right? And really the most valuable asset of a seller or a rep is time. So how do we be really selective about protecting their time? How do we simplify workflows for them, right? Because if you look at this, look at all the different categories of technologies they're probably being asked to use or utilize in their day-to-day selling jobs, right? Whether it's a CRM or the enablement platform or the HR system or some of the communication tools, right? Just wanted to sort of put a picture on this and just show where sort of revenue enablement technology fits within the stack, and sort of how can we leverage technology as a way to supercharge our enablement philosophy and our strategy, right? And again, I work for a technology firm, but I'll be the first one to say, some organizations really, I think of technology as a silver bullet. It is not, right? You need to make sure you've got the right team in place, a right framework and a strategy in place, and then technology becomes the scale and the amplification to that, right? So I think it's really these things working in harmony that are going to make you successful to really accomplish some of those objectives. And this also feeds into our discussion around being viewed as a cost center versus a revenue driver, right? Because obviously technology can be expensive or costly. Training is expensive because it takes time, right? You're taking your reps time out of the field and giving them learning and giving them education. But how do you prove the value of that? And that's what we're going to try to unpack here today, right? And what is it really going to take to really change our thinking? And I'm a big believer in data and empowering teams internally with data. So even Aaron, you're saying that you're a team of one. Even if you're a team of one, if you're able to influence others in the revenue team and come to the table with this objective data, you're going to be able to influence and really rally people around you, right? And I think that's such a key piece of making all of us successful in our efforts. But you can see the dichotomy here, right? I'm sure a lot of you can relate with sort of the left-hand side of, how much does the training cost? What direct proof is there that sales enablement boosts sales? Why invest in enablement when I can put more money in direct sales or some marketing promotional programs where I can really correlate that more easily with my returns, right? How can I justify the cost of sales enablement if sales aren't really improving, right? So all these questions are probably ones that we've faced either from our leaders or from our executives. And, the conversation that we're going to have today is really geared around arming you with that framework, arming you with that knowledge and confidence in data to really get people to think about the new way of how revenue enablement fits into the puzzle, right? How much are we investing? How can we boost our confidence in our sales team, right? How can we invest to keep driving revenue growth? These are the types of questions we want to get from our teams, and hopefully, the discussion today will be a good step in that direction. And again, please share your challenges as well, right? What are some of the challenges or obstacles you're facing internally, whether it's you want to make new investments, whether you want to defend some of the programs that you have in place? We'd love to hear from you and really, build that into our conversation today. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah,
Lauren?
I think that the old way of thinking is why enablement comes under fire in tough economic terms and
Yeah.
times, right? We're cost centers that can and should be cut instead of looking at it saying, now's the time to make our people left the most efficient, the highest skilled, et cetera. I did a poll recently on LinkedIn and I asked 2 different questions over a series of a few days. And question 1 was, what would you pay to get a meeting with your ICP, right? Ideal customer profile. And the answers were all over the place, but the average was over $500, right? Then the next question was, what would you pay to make sure the meeting with your ICP was the highest possible quality? Technology, experience, skills, everything went perfectly. The answer was under $50. So there's some skewed thinking there, isn't there? Right? Now's the time
Absolutely.
we can't waste any sort of customer touch. And I'll tell you that fighting old way versus new way, it takes a while for culture in organizations to catch up. Some of us are really fighting this on a leader by leader level, right? So I still have some clients come to me and say, well, when are we going to do this training? Because we can't take people off the phones. They literally have never done training outside of new hire ever. It like, whoa, what are you even thinking?
Wow.
And then you've got this other spectrum of folks who have amazing learning cultures, and it's all about making sure that we're maximizing all of the touches and we're investing in our people and we're investing in the revenue growth. But I got to tell you, in larger organizations, you're always going to have at least 1 or 2 of those crusty old way thinkers. And if you want to get it off your chest, you can just type their name into chat.
Yes, this is a safe space. We want you to vent here as well as learn. I see a chat from Whitney, and I think you have your selection to hosts and panelists. So some of our other participants can't see this, but shifting priorities and a lack of focus is always an enablement challenge. And again, we talked about it, right? So many different areas of influence, and that makes it difficult to prioritize, right? Especially if you're a small team. But again, I'm a big believer in the power of data, of objective thinking, of results-driven thinking. And hopefully this framework can help you prioritize by seeing what's working, what's not, where are the areas of challenges, and again, prove it and tie it back to business impact. So we're going to give you some thoughts on that. So again, I'm also a big fan of breaking things down into simple terms, right? So when we talk about ROI, okay, what are we really talking about, right? Mathematically, right? Getting a little academic here, but it's really a simple equation when you think about it and you unpack it, right? It's net return over your cost of investment, right? And when I think about this, I also sort of ask the question, why is this calculation really hard for enablement, right? And again, I break this down and I say, okay, cost of investment is actually pretty easy to find, right? So you bought a technology tool, probably got promised a lot, right, in terms of what you're going to achieve by buying that tool. Or, right, you ran a training, you flew people in, right? Or maybe you're investing in a coaching program or a method program, whatever it might be. It's very easy to find the cost of that, right? You go back to your contract or you count the number of hours your reps were out of the field. But the net return takes a little bit more effort, right? It takes a different way of thinking. It takes some effort to actually put some programs in place to measure that. And I think most of us don't have a way of thinking of that, or maybe are just caught up in the day-to-day and sort of deprioritize that because it's not really a burning need, right? But it is such a critical piece of making you successful. And it's really incumbent on all of us to put these measurement programs in place so that we can make this calculation ourselves, right, in the enablement function. It is our responsibility to really prioritize this to help us prioritize our other activities, right? So hopefully that also answers your question, Whitney, about like how you can use some of this thinking to better prioritize and prove to the organization why you're prioritizing different areas of enablement. So this is the equation that I think we're going to unpack and really give you a framework for thinking about what should you be measuring as it relates to sort of those 5 components of enablement that we covered, and give you some tools and resources to help track that in your day-to-day activities. Okay.
Let me make one comment here, Dennis. There's
Sure.
really important words we need to add to that revenue equation, if you'll flip back to it for me.
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
One of the struggles in proving our return and proving the investment is worth it is that you can't attribute all the success to your program. And in doing so, you will bruise some egos in revenue. Now, as a former revenue leader, I'm okay going out on a limb and saying revenue leaders have some of the biggest egos of all of our division leaders. Maria, if you disagree with me, hit me up in chat, girl, but that can be tough. So here are the 2 words that you need. Contributed to. Our program contributed to a 200% improvement in stage 1 to stage 2 conversions. Boom, solved.
Look at that great reception you're already getting in the chat, LB, right? I think that struck a chord with some of our audience there.
It's hard because they'll fight you tooth and nail. Also, I will tell you, I'm so glad that we're about to cover specific things to measure. And I do probably work with 20 or 30 clients every year in some of these bigger companies, right? And at least half of them don't get me the baseline measurements I want. So we can, and it's tough.
I'm sensing a little bit of frustration there.
I don't know where you would pick up on that at all, right? But I mean, my poor team are all rolling their eyes right now. Like, see, I'll be here. It's not our fault. We're not getting the baselines. It's hard to pull them out of sales. Shifting focus, nailed it, Whitney, right? A lot of folks don't know what to measure. And it's our job to do that translation. If you're doing an enablement function through content or skills training or systems, and the goal is to help your BDR team reach more people and book new meetings, right? As an example, your typical sales managers and directors may not exactly know what to measure. And so you're going to come to the party saying, hey, these are the things that I'm looking for. Which of these do we have? Now, do you have the reports in front of you? Go get me 3 to 6 months of the past. And oh, no, now's good. Let's go ahead and grab that right now. So we're going to give those tools to you to know exactly what to ask for. So Dennis, I think that's next, right?
Yep, that's next. And I'm going to make one more comment here. Sales ops is your friend. Make friends with your sales ops counterparts, because if you're able to build a good relationship there, you're going to have an ally, right, to help you come up with this measurement. Absolutely, yeah. That's my tip.
Yeah, I love
it. Excellent. So how can we simplify measurement? Let's start talking about it, right? Let's introduce the framework. So the way that I think about metrics really is in 2 categories. There's leading indicators and there's lagging indicators, right? And I think we need to pick a couple from each as we try to build this ROI impact measurement case, right? So when we talk about leading indicators, these are metrics that predict future performance, right? So for example, you have a meeting with a buyer or a prospective client, right? That doesn't mean you're going to get revenue or have business impact, but it's a leading indicator. You can't have revenue if you don't meet with clients, right? So a leading indicator in terms of overall revenue performance would be how many meetings did we have, right? Because if we have a lot of meetings, chances are we're going to bring in more revenue. So lagging indicator is what outcome you can achieve as a result of some of these actions that are already taken, right? So revenue would be an example of a lagging indicator here. So what we've done for you is really broken down all the key enablement use cases and functions, depending on what your priorities are, and what are some of the leading and lagging indicators you should be tracking in each category. And it's not meant to be exhaustive, right? There's many other things that are probably very relevant to your industry or your sector. So you'll have to do some thinking on top of this, right? This isn't going to be a silver bullet, but it's going to get you started and thinking in the right way to hopefully populate and make this really valuable for your organization. Okay, and a lot of chatter. I feel like I've got FOMO. LB, I gotta check out what's going on in the chat, make sure that I'm catching up here. But do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, just Most of your younger leaders won't know the difference in this. They're going to talk to you about lagging, and they may come after you that you haven't hit lagging yet. So leading is your best friend.
Excellent, excellent. I'm hearing something from Aaron in the chat here about, proving ROI to try to get an LMS beyond my own Google Sheets, right? So again, technology investment, you're going to have to make a case for it, right? And it can help you secure the funds for the priorities you think are most important for your business. So glad you're here with us. So let's talk a little bit about onboarding and training, right? I'm sure some of this is in most of our audience's priority list, right? Educating the sales team, making them ready to be in the field, to be confident. So in terms of a leading indicator here, right? Some of the things that are probably easier to track are completion or pass rate of an onboarding task, right? So if you've got an onboarding cohort, right? How can you really measure those metrics on what activities were completed? How many coaching interactions, right, are happening either with that onboarding cohort or with your sales team that you're really focused on? And also, key piece of readiness and training is really role play and practice, right, before you go into the field. So how much time are they really spending doing this, right? And I think one of the things we can do here also is really separate out the cohorts that are participating and doing well, right, versus the cohort that maybe isn't engaged and doing well, and really think about those two different cohorts. And again, this is correlation, it's not causation, but chances are the team that is actively participating and adopting the programs that you're putting in place and doing well quality-wise in those areas are probably going to see better lagging indicators and results, right? That's what we would hope. And that's really what we're trying to correlate and prove to the organization, right? So that when we look at lagging, we want to take a look at, okay, the cohort that really did a good job, that leaned in, what was their time to first deal, right? When did they close their first deal? Is it, above the average? Is it below the average? What's their quota attainment, right? What's their average deal size? Are they selling more deals at a higher value? Are they hitting quota? Are they missing quota, right? And again, compare and contrast the two cohorts, the cohort that's doing well and the cohort that's maybe not engaged, right? What's the cost of onboarding, right? Has that gone down with some of the new improvements or efficiencies that you've put in place? So again, taking a look at the leading indicators and measuring that, and then ultimately separating those cohorts and really looking at your Salesforce or your CRM or working with your sales ops to say, hey, can you give me a report out on these reps and what was their time to first deal or how much their quota attainment is? And now you're starting to build a business case, right, for some of the programs and say, hey, the programs that we put in place and that we influenced, here's the delta and the results between the two cohorts. And that's pretty hard to ignore, right? I'm curious what you think, LB.
Listen, new hires my jam. So I spent a lot of my career chasing the whale of shortened ramp time. And I will tell you that most organizations don't have that ready built into their reporting. So work with your RevOps people. There's time to first deal, but I think more important to folks is time to quota. And that is really how you're measuring ramp time, right? And so if you have cohorts of new hires coming in, the goal is to massively shrink that ramp time, get them selling as soon as possible. In some studies I've done, in fact, with Microsoft, we studied the difference between their cost of attrition and their cost of green, which meant how long it took for that seat to be filled until it hit ramp. And that cost of the green seat was almost double. It's massive and nobody's measuring it. So that's a huge value add for you there. I would also make sure that in your leading indicators, you're looking at quality metrics. I could go on for days, but I'm going to stop after this one in the interest of time. We absolutely positively need rigor in our new hire. The days of filling time during people's onboarding, way over. I like to see calls happening in the first day or two, right? We can measure call reluctance. We can measure test scores. Most importantly, I think the graduation from new hire is a C-level score on our typical what does good look like, quality assurance, or call coaching form that's being used. And you know who needs to grade that? Your revenue leaders who are accepting these people from coming outside of graduation. So we can absolutely look at their results up to graduation. And when you've got a really great team that the revenue team trusts, I used to measure bounce rate. And bounce rate actually showed that my people could predict success better and faster, saving the manager the time and headache and BS of pulling somebody onto their team who wasn't gonna make it. That's how rigorous a program can be and how good the partnership can be. And I only achieved it once, but it was a lot of fun. And we made a big difference. We saved millions for that organization by shortening ramp time and improving the quality and the rigor and the structure and the alignment of a new hire training program. So I will stop there, but there's 800 more things I want to say. And if anybody ever wants to talk new hire, go find me on LinkedIn right now and send me a DM because we'll just go on and on and on.
Yeah, don't be a stranger. Hit us up on LinkedIn. We're happy to talk about this. Absolutely. But in the interest of time, we're going to keep going, right? So component 2 out of 5 in enablement, coaching, collaboration, peer learning, right? That reinforces sales excellence. So what are some of the leading indicators we can think of over here, right? Calls and deals coached. You want to make sure that your managers are actively prioritizing this, right? And participating in leading by example. So that's a leading indicator. If your managers aren't doing this activity, chances are, right, this function needs support. Coaching sessions per rep, right? Is it a one and done? Are they coming back for more? Are your reps really leaning in and asking for feedback? That's another leading indicator. Manager participation rate. You might have, maybe 50 or 90% of your managers participating. How can I, again, take the cohort that's participating, take the cohort that's not participating, and try to measure the deltas and the differences in terms of what those lagging indicators look like, right? So what's the win rate of the coached cohort? Are those reps winning more deals, right? Are they able to convince their buyers better, whatever it might be? What's the sales cycle length of the coached cohort, right? Are they able to sort of navigate the complexities of a sales process easier or faster than their peers? Again, what's quota attainment of that coached cohort versus the not coached cohort? Just some examples. There's probably many more, right? But just giving you some thoughts to get you started to really define what does this look like for your organization based on your industry, based on your priorities, and based on what product or services you're bringing to market.
On this one, I would add skills, right? You just nailed this. We have to start with, are they doing it? Because show me an organization where managers are consistently meeting the number of coaching sessions goals set for them, and I will show you a pretend organization, right? It's rough. And it's because sales management is the busiest job in the world. And I'm a freaking working mom who owns 2 companies. I get busy. So start with the number, and then we've got to move also into the quality. Sales managers' number 1 worst skill, according to, what was it, the Sales Executive Council, it might have been Gallup, is call coaching. Okay. We suck at it naturally. I know this to be true. So if you're going to focus the enablement, getting those sessions to happen, sure, but making them higher quality and measuring that is where I challenge you to focus. How do you do that? A call coaching grading form, rep feedback on the manager, coach feedback on the coach, boss feedback on the coach, right? You can 360 that sucker. Let's make sure they're quality, because a crap coaching session where your rep walks out with a laundry list of things they've done wrong, it's better if it doesn't happen at all. On the lagging indicators, again, I'm going to throw in skill quality on this. When we measure things well, especially with our great tools out there, I can say, hey, are the skills on Dennis's team going up? Or I can say, hey, we're really working on closing right now. Are Dennis's skills on closing going up, right? And I love when we can make quality part of the balanced scorecard. So look for that in both sides.
Absolutely. You nailed it. And I think a strategy here to sort of build confidence in the sales leadership organization is start with a few of your allies, right? So if you're not able to get broad participation, pick a couple, start small, right? Treat it like a pilot program where you say, look, I'm really going to lean in and try it with maybe this one division or this one team or this one manager, really have them to buy into my program. Maybe you build it together, right? And measure the success of his or her team, and then say, look, this manager or this team that participated in this program, their results are through the roof versus the ones that are refusing to engage. So if you've got people that are naysayers and reluctant, bring them into your circle of trust by proving it to them by saying, hey, your peers are participating and they're winning, right? And maybe you'll win them over.
Cohort is brilliant. We did that with a client, and there was like 260% improvement in the rep skills and results of the ones who got manager development and coaching training. It was amazing to see that difference. Then people were coming to us. But what's happening in your chat right now is, I'll tell you, I've lived it. It's frustrating when managers want you to do it all, but they won't follow up with the coaching. Not that any of us have dealt with that every day of our careers. So work on some strategies to help make sure it's happening out there. And that's tough. So maybe we can start at the leadership level. Maybe it's the cohort level. All good stuff. Keep it going in the chat of how you get managers to actually get out there and coach and do the follow-up.
Yeah, and again, peer learning is such a big part of enablement. I mean, and we're all peers here, so please do share with your respective viewers here as well. Let's all learn from one another, right? This is a great conversation so far. Thank you, everyone, for leaning in. Launches and rollouts, right? So you might be introducing new products to market. What's that going to require, right? You're going to have a program in place to transfer that knowledge into the field and hopefully hit your revenue goals. So leading indicators here could be launch event participation rate, kind of a no-brainer one, right? Who showed up and who took part of the program that we put into place? What was the certification completion rate? Sometimes if you're in regulated industries or have sort of like high compliance requirements, you might need reps to go through a certification program, a formal program to really nail the talk track. How many people completed that? How many people participated in it, right? Those are just some ideas on some leading indicators. And again, some of the lagging indicators here could be time to certification or proficiency, right? How long did it take them to do that? What was the launch cost savings with the program that you put in place? Traditionally, maybe it took weeks to launch a product, and maybe the one that you've put into place, you can really measurably show that it took less people, took less time, and it was less money. That's also ROI, right? That makes the top half of the equation bigger. And also revenue impact of that certified cohort, right? So the people that actually went through your program, really leaned in, is using the materials. Okay, what's their revenue attainment rate, or how much are they hitting the goal of this new product or this new rollout? Just some ideas.
Oh my God, I think you've nailed this. So from an enablement perspective, I can't add any value here. So I'm going to flip over to the sales perspective. So let's speak in their language on this one, right? You're launching, let's say, a new product. Your leading indicators can be using those listening tools and the conversational intelligence to show growth in the product name being mentioned, right? Are they bringing it up in conversation?
Yes.
Number of
Yes.
quotes being sent with new product, length of call where product is being discussed. And then, of course, we're obviously looking for the number of sales, the products included, the deal size of the sales, products included, and the percentage of time. And we're going to want to get those sales goals ahead of time, right? Is this an add-on product that our goal is 10% in the penetration, or is this an add it to every sale, every time kind of product? And our goal is, 90%. Measuring that along the way is going to keep everybody's attention high.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, technology has evolved so much nowadays that, you can put triggers in place and say, hey, are they mentioning the key phrases or the value propositions, or, are they talking about pricing the right way, or whatever your definitions are? You can start to monitor those and have those alerts be sent directly to your teams, where this doesn't have to be a big laborious exercise, right? And I think that's also one of the real pushbacks we typically get on coaching too. We were talking a little bit about how like managers don't adopt some of the coaching frameworks, and it's time, right? Sales leaders are busy. There's a lot going on, chasing deals, right? But it's really important to make the case that if you do invest this time, it's going to pay dividends in the long run too, right? So let's move on to content and messaging. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as a marketer, right? Especially coming from a product marketing background as well. This is, a process that I've been intimately involved in for most of my career. And some of the leading indicators here could be use and adoption of this approved content, this formal content that we're putting out there. Are reps finding it? Are they using it? Are they sharing it with external parties, right? And again, how much buyer interaction are you getting from that content that's shared? Some of the leading indicators here, and again, if we think about lagging indicators in this area, is you want to actually correlate some of that content to deals. So how much of that content is actually actively being used in a deal cycle? How is it influencing deals? How is it lifting win rates? How is it affecting average deal size? Again, this is a complete correlation exercise, but again, you can also do an analysis here of reps using sort of their content on their desktop, or things that they're putting together, versus the formal approved content that marketing is putting together, right? And you can start to measure the impact on actual deal velocity and volume and value by really being able to correlate these things. So any thoughts on this one, Lauren?
I just really love the shares and views externally. That one is the one that cuts through both enablement and sales and marketing, right? Is it being used? Is it being seen? Is it influencing those sales? And I love it. I don't have as much experience at all with this as you do, Dennis. The only thing I would say is revenue leaders, again, I'll translate to that audience. Man, they love a stack ranking. So as you, content, right? If you could stack rank for them, what's most popular, not only are you justifying the implementation money and cost and time, but you can guarantee those top 5 are going to shoot up even higher because, ooh, that, people love the other people are buying and the 5-star reviews. It's the social proofing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, some of this you might need some assistance or technology to do it, but if you don't have it, you can focus on things like, reps actually being able to find content, how much time are they spending looking for content, right? That's typically the most common thing that we get in this area is I can't find it. Where's that latest deck, right? I mean, that's like the that's the sort of common one that we get as marketers and as enablement teams. But like those are the things you can also measure, right? And see how much time you're saving them by centralizing content or making it really easy to understand taxonomy, whatever it might be, right? And tying that back to time is money, right? If you're not spending time looking for that, you have more time to sell, and that's also ROI. And the final component of enablement is digital selling. We talked a little bit about this, right? So how can we empower our reps with the tools to really communicate with their prospects in a digital world, right? And again, this is very much related to also content, right? So if I have a medium to communicate that message, right, to make sure that I'm creating a deal room or I'm creating an environment where that content can be engaged with, I can start to measure some of these things as well, right? So in virtual interactions or in digital interactions, how many prospects are viewing that content? How are they engaging with that content versus via email or some other traditional channels, right? And how many engaged contacts do I have per deal? This is an important one, right? So for most organizations, decisions are made not only at an individual level, but they're made in groups and cohorts, right? And I think we want to educate and inform our sales teams to sort of swim upstream, if you will, and get to power and include the influencers and the cross-departmental collaborators in their deals, right? And that can be a leading indicator of success. So reps that are single-threaded, only selling to one person, how are they succeeding versus the ones that are really multi-threaded, right? And really gaining consensus in their organization. That should be something easy to track, actually, if you go back into your CRM data, if you have one, or Salesforce, and be able to see, okay, reps that are multi-threaded, that are expanding, that are selling really across a deal committee, they're able to gain consensus and move faster, perhaps, right? And those are some of the lagging indicators. How many touch points per closed deal? What's the sales cycle length? What's the win rate of these cohorts that are really taking to heart some of these suggestions and bringing revenue for your organization? Okay. So with that, basically we have a cheat sheet, right? Again, you can make this your own. You can adjust some of these. We talked about some ideas, but it's really not that overwhelming of an exercise, right? It's sort of a 2x5 grid. Spend some time and adjust these, delete these if they're not relevant to your business, and really think through it. It'll definitely pay dividends in really proving the impact of your revenue enablement efforts. And again, this is a team sport, so work with your counterparts to define these and measure these and put systems in place where you're tracking some of these and making sure that you're bringing it to your leadership team, your executive team. It's going to position you as a source of influence and insight as well, and really help your personal brand in the organization. So I really recommend everyone going through this exercise.
Hey, folks, just a note of caution, don't boil the ocean. If you picked 3 of these and nailed it, you'd be a star. Right? These are all
very good advice.
Yeah, they're all options. So I love how complete it is. But I got to tell you, if it was my 5th year in enablement, I'd look at this and go, I'm the failure. How am I going to do
Yes. Completely. And that's why I've been really careful to try to position that this is a starting point. Delete things if you don't need it, adjust it, prioritize it based on your organization. You might not be doing all these things, or they might not be as important as the others, right? So we, in the spirit of trying to make sure we cater to everyone on the call, we put a lot on here. We certainly aren't going to be starting there, right? Pick a small area, prove value, and expand.
Wait,
And again,
this has next. There we go. Yeah, you're
and what
welcome.
we've done also is we've sort of transposed this into an Excel-based calculator. Again, not all of us have a lot of resources. We're teams of one. You can start in Excel and do this, right? It's a free tool that most of us have. So we've put all of this sort of thinking and logic into an Excel-based calculator for ROI. And again, totally customizable. Go in there and change the formulas, change the input variables, but at least it gives you a baseline that you can build on. And we'll be sending this Excel-based pricing calculator to all of you at the end of this webinar. So thanks for sticking with us, and hopefully you find it valuable. Okay.
All right, so you talked about digital sales, and again, this is my lane. This is where we spend all of our time. So if you're trying to show your effect on these different digital roles, these are the things you can measure. You're going to want to snapshot these. In the interest of time, I'm not going to walk through every single one of them. Grab a couple of these, take a look. If there's a question you have, put it in chat, screenshot it, because these are honestly just a fraction of what we measure when we're working with these folks. So if you've got BDR, SDRs on your team, and these are the people, business development, lead gen, these are the younger reps who are doing that outbound appointment setting. Sometimes they're outbounding to inbound leads. Sometimes they're answering inbound, but they're usually sort of top of funnel focused. And the hard part are those leading indicators. When we have really good, confident sales reps, digital sales reps, their phone activity spikes, right? When they know what they're doing, their connect to conversation 2 minutes plus spikes. Their conversion of conversation to meeting spikes. We've watched dramatic increases happen here. And that can happen with the right tools, with the right data, with the right content. For us, it's the right training and coaching. So if there's any questions about these, hit them. But otherwise, we're going to go look at AE.
Yeah, and another tip here, again, as you're measuring this, now you know your top performing cohort. You can snip some of those call moments, share them with the rest of the team. And that's your enablement program, right? Your peer learning program. So that's another benefit of measurement. Now you know who are the top performers, and you've got a program right there, right? Just clip those moments. Yep.
Good, good. I like that a lot. So AEs often are grabbing those leads, and their job then is to demo, prove value, and close. Again, longer conversations are great indicators. We've got higher, right, engagement from the customer. We're looking for conversion from the discovery into the proposal, or whatever those sales pipeline stages are for you. If this doesn't make any sense to you, you can still use the words, right? What's our average conversion rate, and what do we want it to be? And to what stage to what stage? Those are not dumb questions. I love quality skills again, right? We've got to have a measure of what does good look like, and yours has to match revenues. Okay. If you're a revenue leader and you've got a call coaching guide or a skill rubric in your CI tool, right, that says this is what good looks like, and you're not 100% sure your enablement team has it, you got a problem. Okay. So same thing, both sides. They absolutely need to match up, and that's how we get them better aligned. Anyway, we're looking for those scores to go up. We're looking for customer engagement to go up. We're looking for deal size, perhaps. Some people call that AOS. In software, we're calling it ARR. I also love product penetration. So how many things do they have to sell, and are they selling more than one thing? Anything to add there, Dennis?
No, I think you nailed this one. And I think just to sort of backtrack a little bit for the audience, but we've given you sort of metrics by use case or business priority. And I think what LB has done here is really think about it at the sort of role and competency level, right? What are the metrics that really matter if you're really trying to hone in on not necessarily a business use case, but really an individual and their role and what matters to them to be successful. So I think you nailed it.
Yeah, sometimes that is our business case. You know what I mean?
Yep,
All right, so
yep.
this is very similar for account managers. These are people whose job is to land and expand, sometimes to renew, cross-sell, upsell, and increase revenue. So their job is to touch everybody in their list. The Net Promoter Score is sometimes part of that. What is the rate of renewal? How often are they upselling and cross-selling? What's the average order size of that? And again, that product penetration there. So hopefully that's helpful. If you don't, did I miss anything there?
No, No, I think you nailed it.
And we got one last one, and this is when we're working with managers. So the sales manager, you can look at percent to quota on their team, but the more powerful here is number 2. What percent of their team's at quota? A lot of managers hit goal with 1-star rep and 1 Bluebird deal, not because they're helping make their entire teams successful. This is how we can help hold managers account to quota, right? Pardon me, to coaching. The next one's about ramp time to quota, but we can also measure managers' employee engagement. We can measure the promotion rate of the people on their team. We can measure the attrition rate of the people on their teams, right? Are they working with their people? Are their people improving? And are they staying?
Yeah, and I think that distinction is very important, right? Percent to quota versus percent of team to quota, because it's very easy to mask a real problem with the first one, right? You want to make sure that your whole team is performing well, not just that 1-star individual carrying the rest of the team. And I think that distinction is very important. All right, final section of the webinar. I think we're running up almost on time, but I'll kick it back to you again, LB, for kind of wrapping us up.
Yeah, I've got about 4 or 5 slides next that are templates and frameworks that have helped me a lot in my career. I'm going to high level each one of them, move quickly, hit me up if you want to talk about it further or put it in chat. If you have shifting priorities and focus and people all over the place, the silver lining is they're coming to you for everything, right? The problem is they're coming to you for everything. And HPI is a framework that helps me show them that my part is one piece of the puzzle, okay? I may be doing the training here, but you own setting the expectations. You own making sure the comp is aligned. You own, right? So it helps people understand that you can't toss it over the wall to enablement and then watch things move. So hopefully that's helpful to you. I also want to show that one and done doesn't work. And I love this framework. I stole it, I think, from Verizon. Learn, show, okay? And then I'll dig into a little bit of content underneath that in the next slide. But there are always 3 stages. If it's one and done and you're throwing a video over for skill training, that one's not going to work. So make sure there's multiple stages. And I'll show you my favorite way to build mastery. I call it the BLISS model, and you better believe it's going to integrate the revenue leader. So Marcus, go ahead and pull this whole slide up. Buy-in. You got to start with the leaders and get them helping you. We can learn this, by the way. We can do this with tool rollouts as well. The learning part itself, the education, make sure it's not one way in video. It has to be interactive if it's going to stick. And boom, interaction. We're going to practice it. We're going to use it. Never roll out a system without people actually touching systems during training. Synthesize. I cannot tell you how often I've seen it. Synthesize means it has to be combined with other skills. If you teach somebody something in a vacuum, they will never pull that out when they're actually on the job. Integrating those neural pathways and helping them fire together. Number 1 tip for shortening ramp time isn't teaching them what to do, it's when to do it and using the cues of everything else they're doing together. So again, I come from a skills background, but if I'm trying to teach a new skill, I need to make sure it's integrated with the products that they're using, the customer talk tracks, and that they know when it's time to pull that. Oh, when I hear this, that's when I activate my overcoming objection step. Okay. The support is where our managers come in. We can certify, we can refresh, but they gotta coach it. What else can you do for extra credit? This is where we're pulling in our marketing and communications people. This is where we're pulling in our revenue leaders. Support it with a contest, gamify it, build a career path, make it last.
Excellent. Love this. And I love the acronym too. So easy to remember.
Yeah. This is a straight out of our playbook, folks. If you're looking and doing this virtually, here's what we think works best, right? These are the literal steps that we take to make sure that we get bliss. We don't have to spend a lot of time here. And then I'm going to show you another snapshot on the next slide that shows, again, if you're doing this virtually, doesn't matter what system. For every course we do, underneath it is the Learn, Show, Prove with 5 to 10 assets. But then after we add the refresher, our course chasers, and our most popular stuff is the manager toolkit. So for any skill you roll out, does your manager have a quick and easy coaching form that shows them what good looks like? Do they have a quick and easy cheat sheet we literally say, here's what to look for. Here's when they screwed it up. Here's the questions to ask. Make it easy and fast for sales managers, and you will get their buy-in and their adoption. Activities they can run during huddles, contests they can run to keep it alive. If you want them to support it, fast and easy is the key.
Excellent. Thank you. These are great. I'll also share a couple of frameworks from sort of from my perspective. And, when we're thinking about readiness and learning, I think a lot of this is the same thing that you mentioned, but just sort of a different visualization of it. But you sort of talked about, the learning piece in isolation. Like we can't just show up on an e-learning or, on a live training course and walk away. We really need to get our learners and our programs thinking holistically, right, to drive readiness and confidence. And that includes practice, right? Objection practice, role play practice, certification on top of that once they've had some time to really demonstrate some of their skills and test it in a safe environment. How can we assess against that? And then how can we gauge retention over time, right? How can we keep the learning going with reinforcement drills, just-in-time content access right before a meeting if they need some content or some refreshers? Where are they going to access that information? And how can we drop reminders over time, right? To make sure that some of the original objectives of the learning program are met over time and aren't sort of lost. And then you have to go back and really recertify your folks and improve, right? Which is the final piece, which is how can they tap into their peer community and learn from one another? How can they get the guidance they need from subject matter experts or from leaders? And again, some of this can be automated and scaled with a tool like Allega, and we're happy to talk to you if you need some of that. But the basis of this is really the right strategy and the framework, right? Once you put that in place, you've found something that works for you, technology can help you scale that and really bring it to the masses and automate and save time. And thinking about sort of this mixed modality or comprehensive modality of what we call modern learning, if you're trying to sort of ensure best practice and I would say maximum retention, think about it on a timeline, right? So that was sort of like more theoretical depiction of the model. But if we're thinking about leading up to a training day or to a launch event, you can think about, some of these activities they don't always have to happen synchronously or live either, right? To save your team's time, you can send a lot of the preparation material ahead of time, have that focus training or launch session synchronous live on the day. And then how can you bake in some of those other modalities after, right? Are you doing the practice session the same day or one day after that live training event? That is the best practice, right? Don't bring teams back together to practice weeks after your initial learning. They don't have enough time to retain that information. It's probably going to go out the door and you're going to be back to square one. So I really always encourage our clients to, bake in some of those practice sessions, either on the training day or after the training day, and then bake in that reinforcement activities really weeks and months after exposure and measure against that. How much of that is being retained? And have some materials that are always accessible to your reps in the moment of need, when they're in the car and they're on their phone, when they're with a client site, right? When they're at their office and at their desk, like, is the content easy to find, easy accessible so that they can retain that information? And I bring up this quick final study, and I know we're at time, but if you pair best practice or peer content with your formal content, adoption doubles. This was a study done by Corporate Visions, who has some really interesting research. 300 people were in this study. They grouped out sort of a marketer, a seller, and a sales leader releasing content to the field. And when sellers were involved and had a best practice example, that formal content adoption doubled. So always bring in best practice examples and actual real role plays from the field to make your content adoption stickier. And that's it. I think we landed the plane on time, LB. I think it's 2.
Ooh, right to the edge of the runway.
Yeah.
If you want to
Marcus,
go one more slide here,
Sure.
not sure we have time for questions, but we can follow that up with in the email, and then as well as if you guys connect, feel free to connect with Dennis and Lauren. The recording and resources will be available as soon as you leave this webinar. I think we still actually got most people on here. Bring out your phones, scan this QR code. I've added the link to the chat. All the resources that we talked about, as well as the recording and the slides, will all be within that resource room later today. So be on the lookout for that. Special thanks to Lauren and Dennis. Appreciate you guys for joining us today. And with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude this webinar. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
everybody. Thank you. It was a pleasure. LB,
Thanks.
let's do it again. That was fun.
Learned good stuff. Thanks all. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.